close to the camera. Do I have to look at myself?
Well, no, not necessarily. Even I can put it over here, but that's just for the first. I think so.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Sodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Bhanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashutora Shata Shri Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Rajagranta Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samvita Bhakti Vrindi Ki Gaura Pramanandi All glories to the Simnavaris All glories to the Simnavaris All glories to the Simnavaris All glories to Shishigran Gauranga O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Putramscha Shishyamscha Nipo Gururva Maloka Kamo Madhanugraharta Itam Vimanyur Anushishyat Atajgyan Nayo Chayat Karmasu Karma Mudhan Kamyo Jayan Manujortam Labheta Nipatayan Nashtadrisham Higarte Hare Krishna. Utramshta Shishamshta Nipo Gurva Maloka Kamo Mananugraharta Itam Yur Nushisha Janamanjo Trundaveta Nipataya Nashtadisham Higarte Utramshta Shisham Shanipur Purava Madanugraharta Itam Vimanyuranushishyarat Anajaya Harmasukarmabodhan Kamanajoyurta Alabeta Nipatayan Nashitasham Higarte. Mothers, Ucham Shishan Shanapur Gururva Malokakama Madanugrahartaha Damimanyuranishisha Tadajgyan No Yojira Karmasu Karma Mudhan Kamyojayan Manjutom Nabeta Nipatayan Ashtadrisham Higarte Vajran Shishishan Shanipur Gururva Malokakama Madanugraharta Entam Vimanyuranishisha Tatajgan Yajaya Karmasukarma Mudhan Kamyojayan Manujortam Labeta Nipatayan Ashtadish Putran, the sons, Cha and Shishan, the disciples, Cha and Nripa, the king, Guru, the spiritual master, Va, or Mat Lokakama, desiring to go to my abode. Mat Anugraha Arta, thinking that to achieve my mercy is the aim of life. Itam, in this manner, Vimanyu, free from anger, Anushishyat, should instruct, Atat Gyan, bereft of spiritual knowledge, Na, not, Yojayat, should engage, Karnamasu, in fruitive activities, Karma Mudhan, simply engage in pious or impious activities. Come, what? Yojayan, engaging. Manujaha, a man. Artam, benefit. Labeta, can achieve. Nipatayan, causing to fall. Nashtadrisham, one who is already bereft of his transcendental sight. He, indeed, Garite, in the whole. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: if one is serious about going back home, back to Godhead, he must consider the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the summum bonum and chief aim of life. If he is a father instructing his sons, a spiritual master instructing his disciples, or a king instructing his citizens, he must instruct them as I have advised. Without being angry, he should continue giving instructions, even if his disciple, son, or citizen is sometimes unable to follow his order. Ignorant people who engage in pious and impious activities should be engaged in devotional service by all means. They should avoid fruitive activity. If one puts into the bondage of karmic activity his disciple, son, or citizen, who is bereft of transcendental vision, how will one profit? It is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. Purport. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 26. Na buddhi bhedam janayad agyanam karma sanginam joshayat sarva karmani vidhan yukta samacharan. Quote, let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruit of action. They should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but to work in the spirit of devotion. End quote. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Agyantamirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyareva Cha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So it's a very intricate purport. Srila Prabhupada is, or Rishabdev, is explaining here that anyone who accepts dependence, either a father who accepts sons, or a king who has citizens, or a guru who accepts disciples, anyone who accepts dependence, then he should not instruct his dependents or encourage his dependents in the engagement of fruitive activity. Fruitive activity means working with attachment to enjoy the fruit of the activity. Or it could also mean disengaging from some activity because of desire to avoid the fruit of the activity. Both are also, that's called a fruitive mentality. To engage or disengage according to if I can be the enjoyer or sufferer of the particular fruit of that activity. So, such consciousness of engagement to enjoy the fruit of the activity or disengagement to avoid the fruit of the activity leads to the last line says, Nipataya nashtadrisham higarte. Nipataya means such a mentality causes a person to fall into the hole. In the hole. Yeah. Prabhupada is translated like, it is like leading a blind man to a dark well and causing him to fall in. Nashtadrisham means the person is devoid of spiritual vision. Therefore, he's engaged in fruitive activity. Fruitive activity never leads to auspicious results. Even before achieving the fruit, while you've attained the fruit, and when losing the fruit, it's all a tale of sorrow. You know, when you don't have the fruit that you're looking for, the intense hankering causes misery in the heart. When you obtain the fruit, there's fear, generally in relationship to the obtainment, because of fear of losing it. And then it is inevitably lost, and so one laments. So the nature of fruitive engagement is miserable from beginning to end, actually. And only a person who is nashtadrisham, only a person who has lost his transcendental vision would work in such a way. Nate vidu swartakatim hi Vishnu durashaya ye bahir artamanina andanya tandara upaneyamanas tepisha tantram uradhamnipata. Prahlad Maharaj says, losing transcendental vision means to not understand that Vishnu is the goal of life, and to work accordingly. So as a result of not understanding that, then the next effect is one takes very seriously the material world and the things that the material world can provide. One takes it very Bahir Artha Manina means all of his manina, his considerations are on the external world and what it can get, how he can gain from that. He takes it very seriously. Andanya Tandar Upaniyamanas. This means that the blind soul, this means blind followers are led by a blind guru and they fall into the ditch. So that's the meaning of the word. So one who has such a conception, who do they accept as their leader? Someone who is similarly blind like them. And as one blind man leads another blind man, they both fall into the ditch. In the same way, a person is devoid of spiritual vision, they often accept as their role models or gurus someone who is similarly blind. And everyone remains completely bound up in the material world of samsara. Andanya Tandara Upaniyamanas. It also can mean the blind soul who is nashtadrisham. He is bereft of transcendental vision. He is misled by his blind mind. This language was used by Narottam Das Thakur. So the soul is himself blind, and he's accepting the blind mind as his leader. And the mind is taking him all over the material world. Isn't it? We concoct something, and according to our mental speculation, we follow that. And no one is of the opinion that maybe their mental speculation can be wrong. At least in the process of formulating the idea, and we can generally see all the positive aspects of our mental concoctions. And then after pursuing them and the inevitable result of sorrow, we still don't think that there's something wrong with the mental speculation program. Something was wrong with the result, there's a little bit of adjustment, and then I can get what I'm looking for. Like this. So in this way, the blind soul has been misled by the blind mind, life after life. Nipataya nashtadrisham higarte. So he falls into the hole of samsara. He is not, in other words, he's not guided by a properly situated authority. He's guided by the mind, who he accepts as the authority. It's constitutional for the soul to accept leadership. Although in the modern world view, everyone can be their own leader, but that's not actually possible. The soul is always subordinate. He's either subordinate to the internal energy or he's subordinate to the external energy. He can never play the role of being the authority in any sense, in the real word, and in the real sense, in the true sense. He's always subordinate. He's obliged by constitution to follow some higher dictation. So when he doesn't follow the dictation of the internal energy of Krishna, in the form of Krishna's instructions, the bona fide representatives of Krishna, either a father, king, or guru, then he will follow Maya in the form of, and her greatest agent is the mind. And the mind will take the soul, Brahmanda Brahmite, traveling all over the universe, and in a futile attempt to satisfy various speculative ideas. So then one who is a guru, or in a guru-like position, a father, a king, they should not instruct their dependents in fruitive activity of any kind. They should not encourage them in any form of fruitive activity, because the result is they continue in the cycle of birth and death. That's not very nice. So they shouldn't give such encouragement. Rather, such leaders, they should themselves know Mar Anugraha Artha, that the mercy of the Supreme Lord is the summum bonum and chief aim of life. They should know for themselves this reality. And then they have to somehow encourage their dependents in the understanding of this truth. The mercy of the Supreme Lord can only be attracted by devotion to Krishna. One cannot really attract the mercy of Krishna by processes of karma and gyan, but only by bhakti. And by bhakti, exclusive devotion to Krishna, one very easily attracts the mercy of Krishna. That is mentioned by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nitya Shaha Tasyaham Sulabha Parta Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. So, Tasyaham Sulabha Parta means very easily they can attract my mercy. The yogis, bhakti yogis in the context. How do they very easily attract Krishna's mercy? Ananya Cheta Satata, they are always situated in exclusive dedication to the services of Krishna. Yomam Smarati Nityashaha, they're always thinking about Krishna, how to serve him best. In this way, very easily, they obtain the mercy of Krishna, desiring to be engaged in his service, Nitya Yuktasa, eternally. They go back home, back to Godhead. The only way to attract the mercy of Krishna is by bhakti. And persons who don't have faith in bhakti, then again, they fall into the hole, the blind well. What is that? Ashadadana Purusha, Dharmasyasya Purantapa, Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani. Those who don't have faith in this dharma, bhakti dharma, this dharma of devotion to Krishna, then Aprapya Mam Nivartante Mrityu Samsaravartmani. What do they obtain? They obtain repeated birth and death. So then it is the duty of one who accepts dependence to inspire Shraddha and dedication of one's energies to the services of Krishna. And that way they don't fall into the hole of samsara. How can a person, knowing this truth, engage their dependence in fruitive activity? Rishabh Dev is saying that here. He mentions, Itam vimanyur anushishat ataj gyan. So atat gyan means these dependents may be ignorant. Generally, dependents are ignorant, right? Otherwise, there's no reason to say Om Gyan Timirandasha unless there's some ignorance. And one should, we were hearing the other day from Srila Prabhupada, that one should always think himself in the mode of ignorance. It is not that I have a little bit of knowledge and now I got it going on. You know, I'm all knowledgeable. I often joke about this. In the beginning, when we first come, we learn 2, 3, 4 slokas. Then we think we're all knowing. Okay, I'm not omniscient, but, you know, I got knowledge. One is thinking in this way. But actually, we're in great ignorance. It's a fact. Just the fact that we struggle to maintain, relationships and practices in Krishna consciousness, it shows how much ignorance is there. Krishna consciousness is a very easy program. Just rise early, chant the holy name of Krishna, attend the program, come to the class. But oftentimes we have doubts about these things. This is due to great ignorance. Even though we know so much, right? Still we have so many doubts about the basic processes of development. This is due to ignorance. So when the superior is trying to instruct us, of course this ignorance is due to attachment to fruitive activity. That's why we struggle in our attempts to develop Krishna consciousness. Because there's attachment to fruitive activity, atajgyan, nashtadrisham. These words all have the same. Karma mudhan. Karma mudhan is also there. Due to attachment to fruitive activities, either enjoying the fruit of activity or disengaging because I don't want to get the results of that activity, due to this attachment, it's very hard for us to understand the activities of devotional service. Arjuna himself is confused about it. Because the tendency of the conditioned living entity has been like this since time immemorial. If I can see that the fruit is enjoyable, go for it. If I see that the fruit is not enjoyable, don't go for it. This is called Bhoga Tyaga. This is what the living entity has been doing since time immemorial. If I can enjoy, go for it. If I can't enjoy, disengage. And this makes sense, right? This is natural, isn't it? A natural thing. If I can enjoy, who will cause himself suffering, right? This is a very natural thing. So then Krishna gives this new concept to the jiva, beginning with chapter 2, that you engage in activity, but you can't enjoy the fruit. So that's the first bewilderment. That makes sense. Why would I do something where if I can't enjoy the fruit? So Krishna gives this new concept to the living entity. You engage and you're not going to enjoy the fruit. And also, in the execution of the activity, you will meet with very unfavorable things and you don't disengage. So the living entity is like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. He gets bewildered. Arjuna, representing the conditioned soul, expresses his bewilderment in the beginning of chapter 3. When he says, Krishna, you said we should do Buddha yoga and keep abominable activities far distant. So here's an abominable activity, according to Arjuna's understanding. Engagement in the war and that leading to killing of people is not nice. It's not a nice result. Therefore, my tendency is to disengage. And you also told Buddha yoga should keep abominable activities far distant. But then at the end of chapter 2, Krishna encouraged Arjuna to fight. So engage. The situation isn't going to be nice. It's not going to be desirable. But you have to engage and you can't renounce it. And the fruit you can't enjoy also. So the living entity gets bewildered by this particular idea. It's very hard for him to accept it. And the reason for that is due to attachment to fruit of activity. Attachment to being the enjoyer of the fruit or not being the enjoyer. So attached gan karma mudhan nashadrisham, he's not able to get it. So here Rishabdev says itam vimanyur, that the superior should not become upset with the dependent because he's not able to get it. Because it's hard to get it. It's really difficult to get it. Because we've been doing fruit of activity for how long? Not forever, but almost forever. Eternal is already inconceivable, and it's not. We haven't been doing fruit of activity eternally, but almost eternally. So we've been doing fruit of activity for a long time. And how long we've been doing bhakti? We should think only for this lifetime. Maybe 1 or 2 lifetimes before. So it's not easy for the living entity to understand this point. So the guru who's trying to instruct him properly will find his dependents not able to follow. Rishabdev is making that point. He should not become angry with them and abandon them. Or encourage them, say, okay, do whatever you want. Sometimes when you get upset, like someone's not getting your point, you just say, all right, do whatever you want. You should not instruct them to do whatever they want. They'll go with that. Of course, Krishna, he does tell Arjuna, yate ichasita takuru, after deliberating, he does make this point. This point does get inserted in his statement. I think it's text 63 of chapter 18. After fully deliberating on what I told, do as you like. Do as you like to do. As you're desiring, you should act. I don't know if that shloka would be there if Krishna was speaking to us, because first of all, we wouldn't deliberate, or our deliberation would be, 1-2 minutes. The whole of Gita, 1-2 minute. Okay, I'm not going to fight. I've decided. But of course, mind you, although Krishna makes this point, says this to Arjuna, in the very next set of verses, Krishna explains, but if you don't do as I'm telling you, you're going to suffer. So he says, do as you like, but then he says, if you don't do as I'm telling you, then definitely you're going to suffer, being engaged by the material energy. So basically Krishna says, do what I'm telling you. And, he gave like a little sound bite of do what you want. But we should not become angry and encourage people to do as they like. That is not a progressive anything, materially or spiritually. People cannot progress doing as they like to do. When we're living in a society, either on a small scale like our society of devotees, or even on a larger scale, on a bigger scale in the whole world, you can't just encourage people to do as they want to do. Do as you feel, right? This is leading to so much calamity in the intellectual spheres where feeling governs everything. However you feel, that is okay. What's your opinion? What's your opinion? What's your opinion? No one ever quotes authority. No one ever thinks of their responsibility. They just do whatever they feel, they act accordingly. That is not very progressive. So leaders should not encourage them in such a way. He should rather instruct them properly, even though they may not like it, and they're not able to follow all the time. But he should not become angry with them, telling them, as you like you do, or abandon them. But rather he should continue to give them the proper understanding. Now, Srila Prabhupada quotes in the purport this verse from chapter 3 that those who are vidwan means learned person, he understands that fruit of activity leads to sorrow. But even though he understands that, he should not disturb the minds of the ignorant. Buddhi bhedam janayat agyanam karma sanginam. The agyanam means persons who are ignorant. And what is the indication of their ignorance? Karma sanginam. They are attached to fruit of activity. He should not disturb their minds saying this is useless endeavor, etc. You're just a nonsense, you're going to, like that, where they will give up the fruit of activity, but because they don't have faith in bhakti, they don't take to that either. And therefore, they take to vikarma, sinful activity. So Krishna says you should not disturb their mind. Now, the context in which Krishna speaks this verse is a cultured society. And we have to remember that point also. Prabhupada's purport discusses Vedaisha sarver aham eva vedyo, that the purpose of all the Vedic knowledge, including those portions that deal with fruitive activity, is actually the development of Krishna consciousness. The Vedas are given by Krishna for the purpose of helping conditioned souls and various levels of development come to the point of Krishna. So therefore, persons who have faith in the Vedas, it's a very nice thing, even if it's faith in the fruitive portion of the Vedas. So in context, when Krishna speaks this verse, don't disturb the minds of those who are engaged in fruitive activities according to the injunctions of the Vedas. Because if you break their faith in the Vedas and they also don't have faith in pure devotion to Krishna, then they'll just simply take to what I feel, and they'll become degraded. That's the context in which Krishna speaks this verse, so don't disturb their minds. You can see the uselessness in it, but also you can see the usefulness of it, because it progressively leads to Krishna. Bahunam jamananante gyanavam prapadite, after many, many lifetimes, but leads towards Krishna. But in the age of Kali, this is not exactly applicable, because who follows the Vedas? Right? Who's following the Vedas? Don't disturb their minds because they're engaged properly. No one in Kali Yuga is engaged properly. So there is necessity to make some disturbance of an already disturbed people by telling them about the uselessness of fruitive engagement. At the same time, just by telling them that whatever they're doing is useless is not going to bring them to the other side of Krishna consciousness either. We may feel good about ourselves that, yeah, I really told him good. And then, sometimes we get together and we talk about how we really told that person really good, told them off, I made this point, I made that point, I made that point. And then you ask them, well, did they come back? No. They didn't come back. Did you ever see him again after that? No, I didn't, So we feel good, but he didn't become a devotee after all, So it's not like it was a success. So just going up to someone and telling them off isn't exactly good preaching or compassion. But at the same time, telling them to be engaged as they are is not really compassion either, because they're engaged in such a way that leads to repeated birth and death. So how are we supposed to preach to the people in order to help them understand the futility of fruitive activity, at the same time become a little bit progressive on the spiritual platform? In the age of Kali, this is mentioned, Kali Kale, Ara Nahi Kona Dharma, Vaishnava Shastra, Kahe Marma. In the age of Kali, there are no genuine religious principles, because there are no Varnashram Dharma. So what is there existing in Kali Yuga? Kaviraj Goswami says, Vaishnava Shastra Kahe Marma. Only the devotees and the Vaishnava Shastra. This is the purport of everything, the essence of everything. This is the only hope in the age of Kali. So devotees who, as we are trying to inspire others in understanding the mission of the human form of life, which is what Rishabh Dev is speaking about here, the mission or the purpose of the human form of life, then we have to be able to understand how to engage people's tendency for activity in the mission of Krishna. Somehow or other engage them in the mission of Krishna, their tendency for activity in the mission of Krishna. And that way, they make spiritual progress. However, even if slight, they make spiritual progress. So someone has, for example, you can study Srila Prabhupada's purport to 1st Canto, Chapter 5, verse number 22. Prabhupada speaks about this elaborately, referring to all these activities as Hari Kirtan, the activities I'm about to mention. He mentions that if you're a scientist or a philosopher, instead of trying to disprove the existence of God, you can use that tendency for activity to understand the energies of the Lord and to understand how the Lord is existing. Prove the Lord's existence through that particular tendency for activity. If you're an artist, you can paint pictures of Krishna. Except if you're a musician, you can sing about Krishna. So many nice songs are there. Or you can even create songs for Krishna. And this way, the leader I'll venture to say in probably clever ways, has to figure out how to engage people's tendency for activity in the mission of Krishna. And that this is compared to curing a disease with the same substance that caused the disease by Narada Muni. Just like you drink some milk, you get indigestion of the stomach. I think this is an example Prabhupada gives. And the cure for such disease is also a milk product, yogurt. So in the same way, Narada Muni teaches, Prabhupada follows suit. People have some activity for, some tendency for activity. So that tendency for activity is a source of bondage. But if it can be dedicated to the mission of Krishna, then that's called Bhakti Yoga. That's Srila Prabhupada's translation. And then that same engagement will become the source of their liberation from bondage. So somehow or other, people have to be inspired to dedicate the fruit of their activities and their activities to the services of Krishna, directly or indirectly. Sometimes people may not always be able to appreciate Krishna in the very outset, but they appreciate, good activity. Like, for example, Krishna lunch. We may get students like at Loyola, some students were wanting to help out, but not one student that I met, he was an atheist. He came to Maharaj's program, and he was like, wow, that was an amazing program, and he started speaking the glories of the program. I was like, man, this is a devotee in the pocket, And then I was talking to him a little bit more. He said, oh yeah, I'm an atheist. And I was really shocked. I was like, whoa, how could you? Because Maharaj's message of the program was very clear. God-centered society. Like Maharaj said it repeatedly. And I was a little like, Maharaj, everyone's going to leave. If you keep stressing it. I mean, if you gave it like a sound bite, God, like a little sound bite, people might. But Maharaj was stressing it. And he even said, just in case anyone missed it, my message is, my message is, he said it 2 or 3 times, my message is God-centered society, compassion based on God-centered principles and so on. So it was a very clear message. No one walked out. I was pretty amazed. Everyone was attentively hearing. And this young man, he was glorifying the program. It's amazing presentation and, on and on. And then he said, oh yeah, I'm an atheist. And I was mind-boggled, I was like, wow. He could appreciate. So he appreciated, he saw the presentation something like a philosophical exercise for the mind, which is very nice. So there's really no God, there's really no transcendental world, but it's just a nice, obviously discussion about God provides more interesting content for discussion than anything else in the material world. So he thought it more like that. I even joked like this the other week that I said just to have good conversation, we should desire to go back home, back to Godhead, because people are becoming so dull-headed in the material world that you can't talk about anything interesting anymore, So just for good conversation, we should want to go back home, back to Godhead, That was my realization, Because talks of Krishna Katha, provide the most interesting subject matter to ponder. Where's everything coming from the world? All these concepts are very fascinating. And anything you talk about in the material world, they've kind of wrote off all of existence. Nothing's really meaningful. It's all chance events. It leads to nothing. There is actually no purpose behind it all. So that's not very interesting at all. So, but when you have to talk about purpose, and it becomes very dynamic discussion. So anyway, my point is that this person may not be able to appreciate that coming to help out with Krishna lunch, because we were inviting him to such a program, is direct service to Krishna. But he could appreciate that it's a good activity, it's a meaningful activity, it should be performed. And that way, provided there's a Vaishnava involved, devotees involved, then his tendency for activity gets engaged even indirectly in the service of Krishna. That has great purifying effect. And then, of course, there will be others who will be able to understand philosophically the necessity for service to Krishna. And that way, as a superior instructing a dependent, we do them good. They should definitely not be encouraged in fruitive activity. Whatever they're doing now, they should not be exactly directly encouraged that what they're doing is very good. Because it's not very good, and even a little bit very good, because it leads to repeated birth and death. So it's not we should go on glorifying their material engagement, But with a little bit of maturity, we have to understand how that tendency for activity can be engaged in Krishna service and encourage them in such engagement in relationship to Krishna. That's the verse being quoted from Bhagavad Gita. In that way, we show mercy to ourselves and also to the living entities. So that's like kind of what I understood from this short purport. Are there any questions, comments? Okay. Same. Abhyas. The question is that to obtain the mercy of Krishna, I quoted a verse from Gita, it is easily attained by bhakti, constantly thinking of Krishna, an exclusive devotion to Him. In that way, Krishna said, very easy, they attain me. So in the same chapter, how do I do that? That's the question. Krishna says in the same chapter, Abhyasa yoga yuktena chaitasa na anyagamina. Then what is that? Paramam Purusham Divyam Partha? No. What is that? Yukta Partha Anuchintayan. Abhyasa yoga means by practice. Krishna says this thing. Because in the previous verse, Krishna told Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Mama Nusmana Yuddhasha Mai Arpitomano Buddhir Mama Vaishasiya Samshaya. Right? That Arjuna's question was, how can I think of you at the time of death? Krishna's answer, why only at the time of death? Why only at the time of death? Sarveshu, Kaleshu, at all times you should think of me. Oh, at all times? Yes, all times. Mama Nusmana, you should remember me and you should also fight, Yudhisha. Just in case Arjuna got the idea, I'll go to the forest and think of you. He said, you should also fight, dedicate, surrendering my arpito mano buddhir, surrendering your mind and intelligence to me, then you will certainly attain me without doubt. So that's verse 7 of chapter 8. Then in verse 8 of chapter 8, Krishna says, Abhyasa yoga yuktena. This can be obtained by practice. You have to practice this consciousness. Development of this consciousness is obtained by abhyasa yoga, which means practicing. Chaitasa na anyagamina paramam purusham divyam. So you have to practice in this way. So that's what devotional service is. Sadhaka, you said sadhaka. Sadhaka means practicing. So we have to practice these things. And as we mature in our practice, we start to notice our tendency for fruitive activity, mental speculation. And then by maturity, you start to let it go. Just let it go. It's not, let it go. There's this strong desire for enjoying the fruit. But if you keep practicing, at one point you just, let it go. It's like a bad relationship or an abusive relationship where someone somehow they can't seem to give it up. But as they try to exist in that relationship, and it's just not working, it's not working. It's a mundane example, like a bad material relationship. Then it's like, it comes to a point where they just have to let it go. And they understand, just let it go. So our relationship with the material world in terms of trying to enjoy it is a bad relationship. And by maturity and devotional service, if we stick to the principles as outlined by the acharyas, you will come to the point of just letting it go. Like, this is not working. This is a bad relationship. Let it go. This is all abhyasa yoga yuktena. One has to practice like that. Are there any other comments? Yeah, okay, so Hannah, yeah. So I'm repeating the question because we don't have microphones. The question is that the crying need of the soul's spiritual life, going back home, back to Godhead, and the guru or the leader, superior, sees that they're not getting it. So isn't it natural for such a superior to become frustrated with the fact that they're not getting it? Yeah, so that's true. But he doesn't become frustrated with the individual. Frustrated, he's not able to maybe inspire, or frustrated that, with the ignorance. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, Shoche Tato Vimukacheta Sanindriyarta, Maya Sukhaya Bharamundorato. He's frustrated to see the souls in ignorance, and therefore he desires to remove their ignorance. So, hate the sin, not the sinner type of idea. So that doesn't mean perhaps that the Guru may not say some strong words sometimes in order to help instill the message in the individual, if he sees that it's necessary. That might be applied. And the way that I express this particular point, it is not that you abandon such a person, being angry that they're not getting it, which may be the tendency, because on the material platform, when someone doesn't, understand my perspective, then I just let them go, right? Okay, this guy's a useless fellow, like that. Or just encourage them, all right, do as you like. That was how I expressed it. So my sense of it was that will not happen, where you just let go of the person, not desiring their welfare anymore, being frustrated that, okay, they'll never get it, just let them go. Or rather, continuing to make efforts to inspire the understanding that is required for their highest well-being, like that. That was how I was getting the feeling of that. Does that satisfy? Okay. Your mother, you want to say? Yeah. Yeah. So then this point about disengaging when things are not comfortable for our sense gratification tendency, that's a little bit more easily applied to activities where relationships are not involved. But when there's relationships involved, it means that the disengagement, we have clear instructions, so we know that even though this is not comfortable for me, I shouldn't disengage because the instruction is very clear. But in the realm of relationships, there's a little bit more freedom, and the principles are not so set in stone, black and white. So how can I understand that my disengagement is not just based on a desire, or based on I'm uncomfortable with that? Or could it be the case that such disengagement may be actually mutually beneficial for both parties, or is it just based on I'm uncomfortable? Like you said, because that's correct how I expressed it. I'll repeat, because I'm trying to repeat for the... So as you say, because it's not black and white, because you're dealing with relationships, so also understanding that particular element may not be so clear in the beginning. Am I disengaging because I'm uncomfortable, or am I disengaging because it's mutually beneficial? So that might require discussion with more superiors who know our tendencies, and who know, like, we have a tendency to disengage when this type of situation comes up. And they've been able to recognize that repeatedly, that tendency is there to disengage when this. And they may encourage us, this is not proper, or this is proper accordingly. That's always a saving grace, having that type of superior who understands me in that particular way. I would venture to say that point. And also, although it is true that relationships, there's a lot more freedom there, I do think that it is important for devotees, let's say, to kind of like identify expectations, or establish a more solid basis of the relationship so that it could be understood if my tendency is based on just my own personal discomfort or something higher. In other words, just like when in the material world, I'll try to express in this way. There is no clarity about what is one's duties in a relationship, in material relationships especially. So people get married because I had a desire for sense gratification. They had a desire for sense gratification. That's mutually enjoy. And that's like the basis of the relationship. Unspoken, but a mutual exploitation relationship. And then as things get difficult, because there isn't the higher purpose in the relationship, then they just disengage. So I think the tendency is also there in devotee relations that it's not very clear what is the higher principle of the relationship. And so our tendency to speak prajapa with each other and do things that are not exactly Krishna conscious. So it does seem to be important to identify a more solid basis of the relationship, the friendship of any kind. And that way it might be more easy to find out, why am I desiring to disengage? Is it because I'm uncomfortable, or is it because it's actually mutually beneficial? So I would venture to say that might be something. At least I've discovered that with my own relations with devotees, that it's not been very clear what is my duty to that devotee in that relationship, and vice versa. So then that later on leads to confusion when there's difficulty. So I have like those two elements. I know. No. That's okay. Okay, yeah, Lochan Prabhu, I saw, and then a Shaib. So I'm guessing you're thinking about your son. Are you? I said, I guess you're thinking about your son. I don't know. To be honest with you. Because how do you engage young people indirectly in Krishna consciousness? It's very difficult. When I say that indirectly, the way I express it in discussion is that they don't really know that they're doing service to Krishna, but they are. Like, for example, we put on a festival, right? And you encourage him to do some various services for the festival, which is kind of like an indirect engagement because it may not be in the foreground. This is for the pleasure of Krishna. But it's just a nice thing to help out the community with, help with the festival. So then they become inspired to come help out the community with the festival. It's a nice festival. I'm going to be enjoying the festival too. So let me do something for the festival. I'll wash pots, I'll clean, or I'll do this, I'll do that. So in that sense, indirect. I was mentioning indirect engagement like that. Also, maybe another way might be association with children, other children who are also Krishna conscious. That's pretty tough to find, but anyway, that's just working on a theoretical basis now. You find some children who are Krishna conscious to some degree. They like Krishna things. They like doing kirtan. They like talking about Krishna to whatever degree and so on. So then if he has that association, then naturally by association, he gets to have some engagement in Krishna consciousness. He hears about Krishna, he engages in kirtan, or like that. These are maybe some methods that could be applied. But, I can't think of more examples now because it's challenging, obviously. It's a challenge, Provided you can give young people good association, they can evolve nicely if they have some type of association on a regular basis with other persons who are Krishna conscious. It means persons their age especially, and also just in a community where that's what they're getting. Which is still kind of like an indirect engagement because they don't know it's for the pleasure of Krishna, but they're getting that benefit as such. Just like if we go out on Harinam, right, we actually indirectly engage people in Krishna consciousness by force. It's called forced piety program. because even if they don't want to hear, they can't stop their ears from hearing, because it's natural for the sense to capture the sense object. And also, oftentimes we'll get people appreciating, just like we do our little neighborhood Harinam. And the most important element of the Harinam is waving at people while we walk past them. This is the most important. More than our singing is not too good. Voices are a little raspy, it's cold, it's miserable. And you can't even hear the mridanga, so they can't even tell if there's a beat going on or not, But that doesn't make any difference. The only thing that makes a difference is you go like this. And you can see many people, it brightens their day, and they gain some appreciation for the party. Even though they don't know what we're doing, what we're saying, what we're wearing, why we're doing this is a little crazy. It's almost below zero, and, why are they out here? But they can appreciate, just with a way of kind of like, you can see where some people like brightens up their faces really light up. And they get an appreciation for the party. That's an indirect engagement in Krishna consciousness, because they are, very nice, like that. So you need to provide environments where people can even appreciate to whatever degree something. But it's not easy, obviously. That's all I have. Okay, so community Prabhu, you want to say something, then we'll finish with that. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, as a devotee can't disagree with that. Okay, so then, thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.